What up, Cuts? It's your boy, the Hater, and I wanted to make a video about good old NXT. Now, one of the things at NXT that people are overly hyped about, which seems to be something that happens all the time, is in this particular case, Trick Williams. Now, here's the thing. When Trick Williams debuted, I actually liked him a lot, right? Not necessarily him, not necessarily Carmelo Hayes, but the idea, right? It reminded me a lot of, what's his name, Magnus in TNA when the other guy, I forget his name now, but the other guy from King's Lynn, England, who was like in WWE for like a minute in NXT, where that guy, Bram, when Bram came in and his thing was like, Magnus, what are you doing, right? Magnus, like, when Bram debuts, one of the coolest backstage promos, right? Because Bram is like this big, like, burly type, right? And Magnus is like, Bram, oh my God, it's good to see you, mate. And then, like, Bram's like, what do you do? He just pushes him against the lockers and grabs him by the throat or something. He's like, what are you doing? You know, you're like out here losing like Shark Boy, right? What's going on with that? No. We're not here to screw around, right? And this leads to Magnus eventually becoming the champion, right? So with that being said, this had shades of that, right? Where Carmelo Anthony, shout out to Melo, where Carmelo Hayes was becoming good, right? He was getting ready for a push, and it was time to give him something. And what they gave him was a new friend, his best friend, Trick Williams, who was there to make sure that Carmelo's head stays on straight and he focuses on his goal, which ultimately leads to Carmelo becoming NXT champion, right? In what ultimately turned out to be one of the most boring and meaningless title runs of all time. In my opinion, had Braun Breaker still been the champion this entire time, it would have been better. But that's neither here nor there. Now, all of a sudden, people are like, oh my God, Trick Williams, his entrance is the best, right? He comes out and the fans start cheering, whoop that Trick. And then Booker T was like, get him, whoop that Trick, yeah. Now, for those of you that don't know, whoop that Trick is a phrase that comes from the very underrated movie Hustle and Flow starring Terrence Howard. One of my favorite movies, actually, right? And in that movie, Terrence Howard plays an aspiring rapper / pimp, right? And he wants to make a song called Beat That Bitch or something, right? But then he's like, it's a little too much. What can we say? He's like, how about slap that hoe, right? And, choke that skank, whatever. He comes up with all these different iterations of the same phrase, and he lands on whoop that Trick, get him, whoop that Trick, get him, right? And the whole point of the phrase, now I know that NXT fans, WWE fans, AEW fans, most wrestling fans, and quite honestly, most sports fans have about 3 or 4 brain cells, but it doesn't take long. It shouldn't take too much critical thinking. Take those 2 beans that you have that you call brain cells and rub them together, NXT morons. The truth is this. That phrase makes no sense. Whoop that Trick means beat that promiscuous woman, if you will, right? So in this case, who's the Trick, right? Presumably, it's Trick Williams' opponent, right? But the problem is, Trick Williams is named Trick. So when you say whoop that Trick, it's almost like you're cheering for the opponent to beat up Trick, right? This would have worked much better, is my point, if Trick Williams was the heel and people were cheering against him, right? Now, because people don't think of these things, they don't think about 1 + 1 being 2. They're just like, I like the number 2, and they just put it in there, right? So, in this case, it's a chant for Trick Williams, right? Now, this is nothing new. This is nothing unique. The entrance isn't great, and people are like, it's the best entrance in NXT. What are you talking about? It's lame. But that's neither here nor there. Entrances don't really matter, right? You can have a good entrance and still suck. Look at Finn Balor, quote unquote. Look at Bray Wyatt, rest in peace, right? So, Trick Williams, in my opinion, is very overrated because, first of all, the story is complete garbage, right? I've already talked about that in the past, but this story is complete crap. I don't care who attacked Melo and who attacked Trick Williams. I don't care at all. For all I care, they can go backstage and blow each other. Right? It doesn't matter to me at all, right? Now, with that being said, Trick Williams, we're going to analyze him a little bit as a character and as a wrestler. Number one, his finishing move is that stupid knee thing that he does. He just jumps in the air and pretends to knee the person, right? It's like one of the worst moves ever. You know what I mean? It's really stupid. It's right up there with like Walter's power bomb. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just garbage. It never looks the same twice. It's just a bad move, right? Number one. 2, does Trick Williams have the look? In my opinion, Trick Williams definitely has the physique. Now, when I say definitely, I shouldn't say definitely because we're comparing him to NXT jobbers, right? There was a thing where him and Carmelo were talking and they were next to each other, and Trick Williams is like a foot and a half bigger than him. And just the implication that somehow Carmelo could hurt Trick Williams is just laughable, right? It's just laughable. In real life, if Trick Williams wants to destroy Carmelo, he would do so in 35 seconds. If he wants to destroy, I don't know, Ilya Dragunov, he would do so in about 25 seconds. Then, if he wants to destroy like Von Wagner, I don't know about that. I feel like Von Wagner would whoop his ass. But that's about it, right? Maybe Braun Breaker, right? But these normal dudes have no chance against him, right? Maybe like Briggs and Jensen, like those guys would have a shot, right? There's like, or those two guys, whatever, Bronco Nima and the other one. I like those guys a lot, by the way, but that's not here or there. The point is, he's a big dude. He's in good shape. So I hate to say it, but he does check that box. Now, in terms of his appearance, he's kind of weird looking, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just kind of weird looking. Like, not in a bad way. Like, I think he has an interesting look, but his hair is like too long to be like a real main eventer. Like, if you want to be a main eventer with long hair, you have to be like either The Undertaker or you have to be like a very good looking dude like a Shawn Michaels. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be something like an Edge or like, you know, these types of people that people are like, oh my God, look at that guy, right? Like, people, long story short, it's like this, right? If I watch wrestling with my mom back in the day or even now and she sees like, I don't know, Christian or Edge or Roman Reigns or Kevin Nash, you know, she'll be like, wow, that's a very handsome man, right? She's not going to say that about Trick Williams or, you know, the majority of the current wrestlers, obviously, right? So that's what I'm getting at, right? Cut your hair. It's more serious unless you're playing like a Playboy gimmick type, like a ladies' man type, which wouldn't fit him very well. Now, with that being said, we got to talk about the most important thing, and that's his personality and charisma. In my personal opinion, he's not charismatic at all, right? Neither him nor Carmelo have anything special about them, right? We see this all the time. People take someone who's completely average, right? I'm not saying he has zero charisma compared to a normal person, but I'm talking about the wrestling charisma, right? You compare his charisma, let's say, to like Shawn Michaels, right? It's like, if Shawn Michaels is a 10, Trick Williams is a 1. Carmelo Hayes is a 1. Like, they're not even 2s, right? They're so far apart, right? I mean, I get it. I'm comparing him to like one of the most charismatic people of all time, right? But let's be real. Or like obviously The Rock, same thing, 10, you know? But look at, for example, Gunther. I keep bringing him up. Karrion Kross, right? It's like the WWE fans and the AEW fans, probably more often than not, make this mistake. They just see someone who's completely average, right? Like what makes Walter better than Karrion Kross, other than the fact that the fans stopped liking Karrion Kross because everything I said turned out to be true. Don't worry, everything I said about Gunther will also turn out to be true. Don't you worry, motherfucks. Eventually, Gunther is going to lose his big match, and he's going to be on a Baron Corbin-style trajectory. He's going to be on a Samoa Joe-style trajectory, right? At least Samoa Joe had some one-on-one title shots. But anyways, the point is, what's so special about Gunther and Karrion Kross and Trick Williams? Absolutely nothing. There's nothing there. You know what I mean? There's nothing interesting about any of these three guys. So it's like, why would I listen to the fans? Why would I just accept that Trick Williams is good just because people say he's good? No, I have to be able to see it, right? I have to be, at this age, maybe when I was a kid, you could trick me. But even as a kid, I knew that the way that wrestling was presented, I knew that Chris Benoit was like the number one guy. He was the leader. He was the head of the Radicals. But I also knew that clearly Eddie Guerrero was the one that I wanted to see more, and that I wanted to see more often, and that I wanted to see in matches, and definitely on the mic, right? It was very, very obvious, right? Like, if something is not very obvious, then it's not good. It's just really that simple. If someone's not very obviously good, then they're not that good, right? If you have to, like, if you're watching wrestling and someone's like, wow, this guy sucks, and you're like, no, he doesn't suck. Like, CM Punk is a great example, right? Like, if you watch wrestling with, like, go watch wrestling with your grandma or your aunt or your dad or anybody that doesn't watch wrestling and just, like, try to convince them CM Punk's a big deal. They're all gonna laugh at you. They're gonna be like, what are you talking about? This guy? Are you kidding me? Whereas if you were to watch one segment, you can pick the segment. Pick the segment that involves The Rock. Everyone's going to laugh or say, wow, this guy's the coolest guy of all time, right? Everyone's going to connect with The Rock. Everyone's going to connect with Stone Cold. Everyone's going to connect with Mick Foley, right? Everyone is going to connect with Booker T. They're not going to connect with even people like Triple H, right? It's just, there's some people that are better than others, right? Like Triple H, you know, people say he's one of the best ever. He really isn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like a top 20, if we're being honest, right? I can think of like 10 people in the Attitude Era off the top of my head that are like, the Big Show is better than him. You know what I mean? Like, what makes Triple H better than Big Show? Nothing, absolutely nothing, right? You see Big Show, you can connect to his emotions. Big Show is so underrated. That's another video for another time. But the point is, we have to be able to be honest with ourselves. Trick Williams is nothing special, right? People are like, oh, once he beats Carmelo Anthony, he's on his way to stardom. Trick Williams will never be a star. You heard it here first. I mean, there is a chance, obviously. There's always a chance. I always leave room for a possibility, right? But it's like, let's compare him to, I don't know, Cesaro, right? Cesaro is better than Trick Williams at everything in wrestling. At everything. Even charisma and personality. Cesaro has more charisma and personality than Trick Williams. He's better looking. I mean, he is bald, so it's got a little weird. But he's like obviously in better shape. He's stronger. He's faster. He's more athletic. He's better in the ring. He's got better moves. He's better in every way. He's got more respect from the fans. And look what happened to him, right? You need to have the it factor. And the it factor, what's his face? Trick Williams does not have. Also, let's say it like it is, his name is Trick Williams. That is not a main event name. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. I do like him still. And that's another distinction that I want to make. Like a lot of these wrestlers that I crap on, I like them. You know? Like, I'm not crapping on Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams because I want them to fail or I want them to get fired or anything like that. I just put them on the same level as Cedric Alexander, as Baron Corbin. No, Baron Corbin's better. Cedric Alexander, as like... You know, imagine like a Mustafa Ali, but one that I don't hate. You know what I'm saying? Like, I put him in that level of like, all right, like they're solid. Like, a great example would be Cesaro. I put him on the same level as Cesaro, where it's like, yo, like, you know, I get it. Like, some people like you, but this just isn't good enough. You know what I mean? It just isn't good enough. I don't hate them. Like, I want Cedric Alexander to get some sort of push. I keep saying, I want him to be like, you know, the mid-card champion. Would it really hurt if in this entire title reign that's completely meaningless of Walters, right, or the U.S. Champion, whoever is the U.S. champion now, would it really hurt if Cedric Alexander got a 1 week title reign out of that? No, it wouldn't. You know, like give this man some props, right? Like I don't think I've ever seen Cedric Alexander botch a move. You know, so like what is it? Like Walter botches every move. I don't understand, but it is what it is. The point I'm trying to make is just because I say they're not good enough, or if I say they're overrated, doesn't mean that I hate them. Like I understand why Gunther is interesting. Like I mean, I'm not interested in him at all, right? But like I get it. I get why people like him because he's presented as strong and viable. But you know, I'm not saying he's a zero, but I mean he's pretty much a zero. But like I'm not saying he's a zero. I'm just saying he's not a 10, right? And that's the idea. Like in order to be like a person that people talk about the way they talk about these people, like Trick Williams and Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe, you really have to be exceptional, right? And it's like none of them are exceptional. Like absolutely none of them are exceptional, right? Karrion Kross is not exceptional. That's why he hasn't been on TV in like 2 years, even though he's been hired. He's like Mike Bennett, who was like with the company like 3 years, had like 2 matches, you know, and then he went to rehab on their dime. Like he pretty much just came there and just took money from them. But it is what it is. I'm not here to like discuss all of that. All I know, Cucks, is that Trick Williams just isn't gonna happen.